Trump's new attorney general pick opposed legalizing medical marijuana in Florida, you guys. That's right. President-elect Donald Trump announced that former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi would be his new pick for the nation's top law enforcement role. Compared to Gates, who has widely known for pro-legalization stance on marijuana and had even vowed to go easy on the cannabis industry if he got the job. Bondi's record on the issue is far less pro-reform, you guys. That's right. As Florida's AG, for example, Bondi opposed efforts to legalize medical marijuana, and only hours after the embattled former Representative Matt Gaetz withdrew from consideration from Attorney General, President-elect Donald Trump announced that former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi would be his new pick for the nation's top law enforcement role. While serving as the state's top law enforcement role back in January of 2011 through January of 2019, she occasionally waded into other cannabis-related issues. In at least some of those instances, she was defending laws passed by the legislature, which is generally standard practice for attorney generals. In 2018, for example, Bondi, as attorney general, filed an appeals brief in state court defending the legislature's ban on smoking medical marijuana, with her office citing harms to patients and those exposed to secondhand smoke as ample reasons to exclude smoking from the statutory definition of medical use. Interesting, you guys. The judge in that case, however, ultimately found that the state's medical marijuana amendment, in quotes, recognizes there is no right to smoke in public places, thereby implicitly recognizing the appropriateness of using smokable medical marijuana in private places consistent with the amendment. And smoking was later added as an approved form of delivery for medical cannabis patients under a push from Governor Ron DeSantis' administration, you guys. That's right, he allowed for smokable flower. Kim Rivers, the CEO of medical marijuana company Trulieve, which bankrolled a marijuana legalization initiative that failed to pass this month, said that Bondi on social media on Thursday says, "I think she's a great pick." That's in a quote, you guys. Rivers noted that Bondi's opposition to smokable marijuana, for example, was following then Governor Rick Scott's direction on that at the time, and asked, "Are we cooked?" by a user whose profile picture is a cannabis leaf. Rivers replied, "Not at all." In a quote, they say, "I have always known her to be straightforward and very fair," Rivers said. "She is passionate about ending the opioid crisis and did great work shutting down pill mills in Florida. She is an advocate for safe regulated markets, and I believe she will bring the same energy to end the fentanyl issues our country is facing." During Trump's first term in office, however, Bondi served on the president's commission on combating drug addiction and the opioid crisis, which issued a report that expressed concerns about marijuana legalization. In a quote, "The commission acknowledges that there is an active movement to promote the use of marijuana as an alternative medication for chronic pain and as a treatment for opioid addiction," it said. Recent research out of the NIH's National Institute on Drug Abuse found that marijuana use led to a 2.5 times greater chance that the marijuana user would become an opioid user and abuser. The commission found this very disturbing, you guys. In 2018, Bondi's office issued an emergency rule allowing the CBD drug Epidiolex to be made available in the state following the pharmaceutical's approval by the FDA, and it was reportedly the first time Bondi used her powers as AG to deschedule a drug, though at that point in her career, she already added 133 other chemical compounds as scheduled substances. And while Bondi strongly opposed a 2014 medical marijuana measure that went before voters, she was largely quiet the following year as the Florida Supreme Court was reviewing a ballot initiative that would eventually legalize medical cannabis in the state in 2016. As for the 2014 effort, Bondi pushed back against that proposal, saying, in quotes, "It would make Florida one of the most lenient medical marijuana states," a claim PolitiFact rated mostly true, you guys. Though Bondi did not go out of her way to block the subsequent legalization effort, she told reporters that at the time she still opposed it. And based on the court's decision in 2014, says, "I have not filed a legal challenge to the current amendment," she said at the time, "but my concerns with it are still the same." One of Florida's most outspoken advocates for cannabis reform, trial lawyer John Morgan, previously criticized Bondi in her role opposing medical marijuana as Attorney General. And in a quote says, "She knows about as much about constitutional law as my Jack Russell Terrier does," he said at the time. That's pretty good. I could see Dr. Mark saying something like that. This isn't the first time Bondi's name has came up as a possible Trump pick for AG, and during his first term in 2018, following the resignation of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Bondi's name was floated as a possible replacement. At the time, Nancy Smith of the Sunshine State News characterized Bondi's opposition to cannabis as pragmatic, and in a quote, "As committed as she's been to taking down Florida's pill mills and cracking down on illegal use of prescription drugs generally, Bondi is not so ideologically committed to keeping marijuana illegal that she won't stand down in the face of overwhelming public opposition to her position," Smith wrote. At that point, weighing the possibility that Bondi might be named Trump's drug czar, she and others who opposed the 2014 amendment filed more than 200 pages in legal briefs while in 2016, noting that by contrast, Gates, who was Trump's initial pick for AG withdrawing on Thursday, was seen as far more favorable to marijuana business interests. He was among the only GOP members of Congress who voted for a democratically led cannabis legalization bill, and he did so twice. He also backed other more modest reforms, such as marijuana industry banking access, and Trump's decision to select him for the Attorney General role took many, including congressional colleagues and insiders, by surprise, apparently. But for marijuana stakeholders, it was a welcome choice in the sense that it signaled state cannabis markets would likely continue to see a policy of non-interference from the federal government, and that the Biden administration's plan to reschedule marijuana would proceed despite the White House change-up. Well, first of all, we don't want cannabis to reschedule. We want it to be descheduled, first of all. And while Bondi doesn't represent a legalization opponent on par with Sessions, who was an outspoken critic of cannabis use broadly, she's a far cry from the cannabis-friendly nominee that Gates was. Meanwhile, before President Joe Biden had hands control of the White House back over to Trump, dozens of Democratic members of Congress this week urged him to expand on his executive clemency work in the final months of his term. The lawmakers cited the president's past marijuana pardons as an example of his ability to provide life-changing relief to Americans. And with Biden nearing the end of his timeline, Representatives Elisa Presley, Democrat from Massachusetts, and Jim Clyburn, Democrat from South Carolina, and Mary Gay Scanlon, Democrat from Pennsylvania, led a group of colleagues in a letter to the president on Wednesday, urging him to take advantage of these last weeks to exercise his authority to reunite families, address longstanding injustices in our legal system, and set our nation on the path toward ending mass incarceration. Only hours after that's pretty much it for this story. And you guys, if you guys want to read the whole rest of it, what's left, you can go on over to our website at www.high9news.com and check it out. But nonetheless, Pam Bondi gets slated to be our next AG, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
This does not sound like a win.
It's not a win. It's definitely not a win.
And this just goes to show that the name calling and the stupid propaganda of repeating things that are lies, it actually works. And now we get a worse answer instead of having, you can interrupt all you want, but the truth is that there's a bunch of lies. There's a bunch of lies purported about Matt Gaetz, and they chased him down. And because it was a distraction to the whole administration, the cannabis industry just got
shafted,
a big knockdown. And that's what we get.
What were the lies?
The lies were calling someone a rapist who's never been proven to be a rapist. There was no judgment. There was no judgment.
Yep, you got to have a judgment to call people that, Rico.
But there was no judgment, so it's a lie. And this is what we get.
It's not a lie. It is
a lie to call someone a rapist who has not been judged a rapist by a judge. That is a lie.
You should see. Hold on. Do we need to play the video of Sonny again?
If there's no judgment.
There's plenty of proof, and there's plenty.
Oh,
plenty
you're
of
the
proof.
judge now. So you're the one over the court who gets to decide what is true and what is not.
I said statutory.
It didn't happen. There is no judgment. So this is what we get. The point is this is what we get. We get a way worse pick for our entire industry and many other things because a bunch of people whined and repeated lies that you're still
just because Matt Gaetz would have been pro cannabis does not mean he wouldn't have been one of the most corrupt, and he has a long history of philandering with underage girls.
I don't know about all that. Where's the proof of that, bro? Those are baseless allegations, Rico. You can't just throw shit out there like that.
No proof for it.
A big shout out to the leaker. Big shout out to the hacker who exposed all that shit, and we got to see the ledger.
That's called hearsay, Rico.
Oh yeah, this dude wrote
without a judgment. That's called hearsay. That's the legal term. Get with it.
He wrote
it's hearsay.
To the girl.
It's hearsay. Unless there's a judgment, it's hearsay.
For fun, for just being awesome. That was in the actual ledger for being awesome, and he wrote
Show
this
it.
on his expense
Show
report.
it. Show
it's
it,
all
Rico.
over the internet, dude.
I've looked. I have not seen any proof of anything that was a judgment. All I've seen
Step outside your bubble for 1 second.
All I've seen is I don't live in a bubble. You can say what you want. I don't live in a bubble. I have looked. I have not found it. What bubble do I live in?
Pam Bondi, she has her problems too, but her problems don't involve a paper trail of allegedly paying multiple minors for sex and drugs and transporting them across state lines multiple times, taking them on Fox News with them where they're taking selfies with him, and a litany of other evidence too. Yes.
We've seen that there's plenty of alleged things that are complete lies. So to completely to repeat them over and over doesn't make them true.
That part.
You calling it a lie when there's plenty of
the judge determined it was a lie.
The judge did not. The AG did not press charges.
They threw it out.
Yeah, they threw it out, Rico. They threw it out
because there was no actual evidence. That's what happened.
They've dropped lots of other things without explanation, as you all know, but you want to cherry pick when it goes against your guy.
No, I just don't want to repeat lies that just come from CNN and MSNBC and no other place that contradict what the judge said. And again, I'll repeat, this is a bad thing for the cannabis industry. So this happening has turned so bad.
Hold on, Rico. Let Jesse finish. Rico, let Jesse finish, and then you can go and speak.
You're defending a very bad thing for the cannabis industry, and it was based on BS. So there you go. You get your way.
It is not.
Yeah, it was based on BS.
Based on BS.
It's all. It's all.
It's all. Your way, and it's
go ahead, Jenny. Go ahead, Jenny. What do you got to say?
I mean, I just think that for the integrity of the show, we can all, as fucking adults, let people speak. And I know I've cut people off, but let's do a fucking better job, especially if we're hosts of the show.
100%.
Without throwing shit at whether you agree or not, and then disagree.
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm okay with that statement, but I'm not gonna let something fly when you're saying like all these lies are flying.
Rico, we have to let one person talk and then another person talk. That's just kind of how it works.
I agree, but I'm saying
okay then. Then that's how it works. Then that's how it works, and that's how it's going to go, and that's how we're running it.
All we're doing is pushing out propaganda.
It's not propaganda, bro. It's not propaganda.
It is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. What you're talking about is propaganda. Okay, you put out propaganda. The other people put out propaganda. It's all propaganda, and we let the people decide what they want to believe.
As a girl dad, I'm not going to.
Rico, again, you can't have this when you're talking over other people. Like one person talks, another person talks, and then you talk.
There's certain things, there's certain lines that I will always step across, and if there is somebody who is alleged statutory rapist, I'm going to call that out, and I'm not going to let this propaganda continue to push on our program.
Craziness. Craziness, Rico. Craziness.
Everybody got their code, man. That's my fucking code.
Fair enough. Fair enough.